But so what was interesting, so this house, so again I said turn of the century and we'll walk this way. And I'll see if I can walk and talk if you can hear me. So around the turn of the century, a lot of these houses were built. Famous for. Her family's been in the neighborhood forever and ever. Yeah.
She said 58.
Yeah.
58.
Wow. So my house is on the street. I'll point it out. One of the things that I really like about our house, we were able to do the research on it, and the gentleman who built it, I mean, he was really in high society at the time. When he bought a new car, it was in the paper. You know, like if he had a party, the guest list was published in the newspaper. So it was really fun to go back and kind of read all of that. But this, in its location, the 16th Avenue was the streetcar. So this was actually a suburb at that time, at the turn of the century. For people who would work downtown, they could come up here and be out of the muck of downtown. So when we bought our house, we did a lot of research on it. So we know, Duncan McKay, he owns a bunch of stuff on 2nd Avenue downtown. And so we did that research, which was really kind of fun and interesting. But as part of the changing demographic that happened here in the 30s with the advent of the automobile and kind of the expansion of African Americans coming this way from 8th Avenue, there was a huge white flight that happened at that time. And it was kind of this perfect opportunity for the gentried African Americans to move in. I mean, all these houses were full of doctors, professors, dentists. It was the professional, and don't quote me on this, but I think they refer to it as the Gold Coast. Even that this is where it was at the time. And what's interesting about that is, so 16th Avenue ended up being a hard segregation line, and I'll show you some evidence we can still see today a little bit further down. And so even when musicians would come to Nashville and they would play in the hotels and things downtown, they couldn't stay in the hotels down south. So there were a lot of rooming houses around here that would host the musical entertainment. But this area at the time, up until probably the mid-50s or so, was really a vibrant, thriving, self-sustaining African-American neighborhood. There were, I think, something like 20 grocery stores, shops, bodegas, things like that, up and down South Avenue, or on South Street and 12th Avenue, and I'll show you some of that, and I'll tell you why all of that changed. But I just think that it's really interesting. And so part of our research here, we learned that the head of the Fisk department lived in our house. He wrote about it in his story. And what I think is really interesting.
Douglas.
No, it was Lorenzo Turner.
Okay.
And what's important, and I didn't recognize his name, but after further research, there was no African studies. It wouldn't have been African American at the time, but in the 40s there was no African studies even in academia, and he was doing all this work on Gullah, the language of South Carolina or North Carolina, the islands there. And anyway, so he's considered one of the founders of African American studies, and he lived here at 1015 Villa Place. And I just think that's really cool, and I think just like part of this story of that people who move in and they make it their home and then they move out, and the changing of neighborhoods over time. So we're going to walk down to Grand Avenue here, and I'll tell you some more about that.